The Daily Ticker with Dirt Sprague is poured by Pelican Brewing. Be ready for your next afternoon vacation with Beak Breaker Tropical. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach.
All right, Daily Ticker time here on a Tuesday, brought to you by Pelican Brewing. Visit pelicanbrewing.com for more details on locations, events, award-winning beers, independently brewed since 1996. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach, as we all do this with our fingers crossed. We'll see how this one goes. We've been told everything's been fixed. Let's see how it plays out today. Joining us now is a good friend of the program. We've had him on many times over the years, Josh Dover, at Joshua Dover on Twitter. You can go give him a follow, host of denversports.com. Denver, Josh, thanks for the time this morning. What's the takeaway and reaction from last night? We were genuinely shocked watching that game. Not surprised necessarily that Minnesota won, but just how dominant that it was and the way that Denver acted throughout the course of that game, complaining about calls. What's the takeaway for you, and how are fans in Denver feeling after game 2?
Yeah, a little bit of that same feeling, guys. I appreciate you having me on. It's a lot of shock, embarrassment, I think, for the city and the fan base of the Denver Nuggets, because that's not the brand of basketball that this team has shown that they can play, and obviously played throughout last year and then last year's postseason when they went on to win their first championship. So it was just a bad brand of basketball. And you're absolutely right, man. It was more about complaining, more about woe is us. We can't catch a break. Nothing's going our way, as opposed to what Minnesota did, which was say, we're going to show up, we're going to punch you in the mouth for the second straight game, we're going to play physical. And then when they started playing physical and the referees allowed that to happen, Denver didn't answer. They didn't match. They kind of tucked tail. And look, I don't know if you're going to get a guy that loves to watch Nikola Jokic play basketball more than me, but he's been not good over the last couple of games. So he's got to be better. It looked like guys we were in the building last night. I turned to some of my media partners and said, hey, it's 8 minutes on the clock here, and it looks like everyone on the Nuggets sideline has given up. 8 minutes on the clock in the third quarter. They just gave up because they knew the writing was on the wall. So it was shocking. It was embarrassing, and it was kind of a harsh dose of reality of where the Nuggets are right now.
Yeah, the tough part about that, Josh, we talked about this earlier, it kind of reminded me of the Chiefs when they lost on that weird call against the Bills, and, Allen's trying to shake Mahomes' hands, and he's just bitching and moaning, and, I think I was the most surprised that they didn't handle it well, that they had, mentally it looked like they broke. Mike Malone is screaming, Jamal Murray's throwing heating pads, and, that's the other part of this is Jamal Murray. I hear you on Jokic. I don't think he's been very good either. Jamal Murray has been completely taken out of this series so far, and I don't know if you're surprised by his reaction to all of it, of throwing a heating pad, of putting up a money sign at an official, if you think he's going to get suspended. But I think the tough part is I don't see this team winning 4 of the next 5 against him based on what we've seen, and I don't know what Murray needs to do if he's even going to be eligible to play in Game 3 to kind of help Jokic and company out, because he has been completely taken out of this thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And you know what? It doesn't just stick to this series. He had 2 huge game-winning shots in the first round against the Lakers, and that's what a lot of people are going to remember. But he was not good in that series either. He was inefficient. He didn't turn it on until the fourth quarter in both of those games, 2 and 5, when he hit the big game-winning shots. So he has been inefficient a lot. That's kind of the knock on Jamal, guys. To be honest, there's a bunch of people in Denver that are upset that he's not an all-star, but I've always kind of, held the conversation like he's got to play more. He's got to be more consistent. He can't just do it every other night or every third night and be an all-star, and we're seeing a little bit of that. And he's dealing with a calf. I'm not giving him a pass on that. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think it's a pretty standard rule across sports. If you take the jersey, then you can't tell me you were injured. It's an easy rule. And he's that way as well. He's not using it as an excuse, but he's been absolutely bad. I don't know if it's something mentally. Jamal's always kind of been, I've always looked for the right way to say this, almost too cool for school. Sometimes I think he's playing a character of a basketball player, of what he thinks people want him to be. And that's not good in any way. I don't know if that's immaturity, and he'll get over that kind of stuff. But, yeah, he has not been himself at all, shooting the basketball. And then the heat pack, I don't know how the NBA can suspend him today, to be honest, or when that does come. If it's just a fine, you're setting a very dangerous precedent for bench players or people sitting courtside right there. I think it's bad to not suspend him. But at the same time, as I say that, if I'm the Minnesota Timberwolves, I might want him on the floor for games 3 and 4.
Yeah, the way they're playing against him right now, they're locking him up. You mentioned him being potentially out for game 3. What's your sense in Denver? Because we've joked in the last, I don't know, year plus talking about them in the playoffs that there's this feeling of like, oh, Denver's going to figure it out. Like even like all those Laker leads, they're up by 20 in the third quarter. Like, oh, don't worry, Denver's going to figure it out, and here they come. And I had that feeling going into the game last night. Clearly didn't happen. Is that confidence starting to fade? Like, is the feeling that this series is over? Is there hope and optimism that they can figure it out? And especially considering what you mentioned, I agree with you. I don't know how Jamal Murray plays in Game 3, and if they lose Game 3, the series is over.
Yeah, and look, it feels like it's impossible. Minnesota's just the better team. They're playing harder. They have more talent. They have a deeper bench. Coach Malone's getting out-coached by a couple of guys that were on his staff just a couple of years ago. So it certainly feels all but over. But look, they can go into Minnesota. Nikola can bounce back and have a huge game and then start to get some momentum coming back your way. I always thought this was going to be a 7-game series, and I honestly thought they'd split the first 4, home and home. Minnesota would get one in Denver, and Denver would get one in Minnesota. Obviously, that's different now with Minnesota going up 2-0. I think we're going to know, guys, Friday night is Game 3 in Minnesota. You will know within 2.5 minutes what kind of team is going to show up and what kind of game it's going to be. Because if Nicole is not fully engaged, they haven't set the tone. What have they played now? 6 playoff games? They have not come out and set the tone in any playoff games so far. 7 playoff games, I guess, for the Nuggets. But so you're going to know pretty quickly. But like I mentioned earlier, Nikola is so smart, and almost when he knows he can't do anything or he can't elevate everyone around him, he gears down. And that's what we saw out of him last night. I'm a little worried that he knows the writing's on the wall, just like feels like everybody in Denver knows, and we don't get the full 100% Nikola Jokic on Friday night.
I know we want to ask you about how the audience that you talk to every day and diehard Bronco fans feel about Bo Nix. Him and Penix being taken where they were was really surprising to a lot of people. But before I ask, they highlighted the guy in the crowd last night, and I want to know, when Conley left Denver after he helped building that to go to Minnesota, and now here's the Minnesota Timberwolves built perfectly to beat the thing he built. How did you guys handle? Was that like a massive deal for you, or was it one of those, he's good, but we'll be okay, we got Jokic, like, and where you guys are all at on that stuff now that you're seeing what he's built in Minnesota?
Yeah, it was a little bit of that early on. I'm like, okay, it's not like the guy went and got Nikola Jokic and he was the best basketball player, and Tim knew that. They took a flyer on a Serbian dude in the second round and they hit the lottery. You know what I mean? Like, that's a really good thing. But he did great things to build this team up with some of his acquisitions and trading some guys, getting them off the roster and that sort of stuff. It was a little bit of, we'll be all right. He's already built it for us. Now we're just going to watch it grow and bloom into this beautiful flower. Then we went to Minnesota, because what it's been since 2020, they had a game 82, and it was for division, all this stuff. Between Minnesota and Denver, it's been a nice little small rivalry up until now, obviously, when they've come back and turned into the team that they are. So it is, I don't know, bittersweet, I guess, to see a guy, because he's great. Him and his wife did a ton in this city, and you get to know them with some of the stuff you do for work and charity stuff that goes on in the city. So he's been really good in Denver. It sucks to see a good guy go succeed and then kind of punk the team that I'm covering and he used to work for. But on the real life level, it's exciting. I'm happy for him. And then when it comes to being a Denver sports fan, screw that guy.
Yeah, I know. We're just looking back at it saying, hey, we hired our GM without interviewing any outside candidates in the same offseason that he was hired to go to Minnesota. So glad that we got everything figured out in Portland. We sure handled that one well. If you need a little perspective in Denver this morning, and you got the Avs play tonight, so I guess things are looking up a little bit. Let's ask about Nix, man. He goes to the Broncos at number 12. Seems like after the draft, Sean Payton is all about it, saying he was our guy. We identified him. He's talking about tricking other teams to move up or to move down. He's our next Patrick Mahomes. What's the reaction been? Are Denver fans jacked up, and how do you feel about the fit of him playing in Sean Payton's offense?
It's almost 50-50 with the fan base. You can't please everybody, especially in today's world, but I think the 50 that are unhappy are thinking that it was a reach. And that wasn't Sean's guy the whole time, and we're going to find out. They're trying to sell us that for sure. But I was actually hearing a little bit yesterday, and I think there's some reports coming out today, or will be, that they did try to move up to 9, had a conversation with Tennessee at 7. So I don't know if that was for Bo or JJ or what the thinking was behind that today. But, I think for the most part, Broncos fans really don't have a lot of a choice but to be optimistic. You guys know what it's been. It's been a world of suck with the Broncos, and certainly that quarterback room for damn near a decade. So it's a young guy. Like I said, we're being sold that it's Sean's guy. And I think if you're a frustrated fan base, which is an understatement for Denver Broncos fans, well, what more could you ask for, fellas? An offensive-minded coach that tells us he went and got his quarterback, and you're starting to put some stuff together with some holes on the roster. It might not work, but you don't really have anything else to do if you're a Denver Bronco fan besides trust in Sean Payton and Bo Nix. And, Bo Nix played 345 college games. He should be ready to go.
Is there any nervousness that maybe Payton is kind of past the prime? That some of this stuff, when we talk about Sean Payton, it's like, yeah, that's Super Bowl. And then you say the year the Super Bowl was won, and he's had some good seasons. But I'm just curious in Denver how everybody's feeling about Sean Payton, the coach in general.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet. I understand why you asked the question, and there's certainly some conversation to be had with it. But I think it's really unfair to judge who he was a year ago with Russell Wilson at the quarterback. Russ is, look, it wasn't all Russ's fault. I'll blame 1% on other stuff. But a lot of it was on Russ. He just couldn't execute, couldn't run the offense. They had to dumb things down to literally 2-word play calls, 5-yard routes instead of 10-yard depth cuts and things like that because he couldn't wait for the route to develop or let the timing come out. So I'm not going to say that no. I'm not going to be like Team Sean 100%. This is still a great offensive mind in the NFL. But I'm gonna hold out my reservations until he does get this quarterback. But like I said, it's the clock is ticking on Sean now. You keep telling us you got your guy, and this is the offense you want to build. Well, you have a couple of years to build it, or you will be out of here, and his legacy will be tarnished.
Great stuff. Josh Dover, at Joshua Dover on Twitter. Go give him a follow, denversports.com. Nuggets, rough one last night. They drafted Knicks, and the Avs playing tonight. Always something going on in Denver, man. Thanks for the time jumping on this morning. We appreciate it, and let's catch up again soon.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. I'd love to.
There you go. Josh Dover. Good stuff from him, and kudos to him. Sometimes in markets, he's a big hoops guy. His Twitter profile picture is him holding the Larry O'Brien trophy. They're high on that team. They feel great about that squad. And sometimes it's easy to let the blame officials, blame outside things, instead of just looking internally and saying, dude, they got punked last night. They didn't show up. It was embarrassing, and he came out and called a spade right out of the gate. And a 50-50 split on Nick sounds about right. I think that's fair to fan bases of some are going to be excited just because you're homers and excited about no matter what. Some are going to question, and we'll see where it goes.
My only thing on that quickly is if you find out that Nix wasn't the guy that he originally wanted,
that's a bad look. Really bad look.
That changes things a little bit for sure.
Really bad
look.
If
it was McCarthy or Penix to move up, and you're like, well,
I don't know if they'll let that come out, though.
Sometimes that stuff leaks without you wanting it to leak. And I'm just saying, if it comes out that we find out he was trying to move up to go get one of those other dudes.
He just wanted to go get Patrick Mahomes 4 picks earlier, bro.
Yeah. That's certainly what it was, huh?